Hi, this is Chad with United Studio Technologies, and I want to talk a little bit about our UT Twin87. So the Twin87 is our take on both the modern and the classic 87 circuit design. I'll explain what I mean by that. We wanted to make an honest representation of the original 87 circuit from the late 60s, and that was where this project began. We made quite a number of prototypes that were simply a one-to-one replica of what we considered a golden specimen classic 87. But during the course of that, it was suggested to us that more people are familiar with the more modern interpretation of that microphone, and that we should do something that sort of accommodates those who are expecting the microphone to be a little bit brighter, a little bit hotter in output. And that led us on a path of reverse engineering both types of these microphones and meticulously trying to tease out what the differences were between these two circuits. After a lot of R&D, we were able to essentially tease out exactly what made the classic 87 circuit different from the more modern 87 circuit, and to represent all those changes on its own board. So when you switch between modern and vintage on the UT Twin87, you're going between two different microphone circuits that are separated in time by about 40 years. The original vintage is going to be a more forgiving sound. It's slightly softer, slightly warmer, has a little bit more high frequency roll-off. The modern sound is going to be, first and foremost, a little bit hotter. It's going to be a little brighter, more articulated, sharper, a little bit extension of the top end, and there are other subtle differences as well. The modern and vintage switch on the Twin87 does something else besides switching between two different amplifier circuits. It also changes the polarization of the capsule. In vintage mode, the capsule is polarized at 48 volts, simply phantom power voltage. In modern mode, the capsule is polarized at 60 volts and is configured in a different way. This perfectly emulates the characteristics of both the original design and the more modern 87 design. This is what lends to an improved high frequency response, a hotter output, and improved sensitivity in modern mode, and the slightly more warm, forgiving, and rolled off sound in vintage mode. This microphone has quite a few of what I call Easter eggs added into it that were only available on hand-modified versions of the original 87. The first is true cardioid. When you set this microphone to cardioid, it actually disables the pattern circuitry, which gives you an improved signal-to-noise ratio, a slightly hotter signal. This is something that had been done by hand on a few classic 87s, disabling the pattern circuitry for situations where the studio only wanted a permanent vocal microphone, and they were willing to sacrifice those patterns in order to get just a little bit more performance out of the cardioid mode. Our microphone does that for you automatically without having to sacrifice the other two patterns. There's another Easter egg in this microphone in the RF filter, which when you open this microphone, there's a set of switches that allow you to turn on or turn off the RF filter that is on the output of the microphone. This originated from a thread discussion that came up about 10 years ago or more on Gearspace, where there was a lot of argument back and forth as to whether the RF filter contributed to the perceived superior sound of the original versus the modern 87 circuit, with the original not having an RF filter and the later editions having one. I don't know if there's a lot of truth to that, but I do know that engaging or disengaging that RF filter has a incredibly tiny but perceptible change in the sound, and we wanted to let people make their own decisions. So the RF filter can be engaged or disengaged, and you can even create variations on the 87 that never existed before, like the classic circuit with the RF filter or the modern circuit without. We are using a custom wound US-made transformer that is significantly larger than most of the transformers that were in the classic 87. We wanted to make sure that there was nothing that would create a bottleneck in terms of low frequency response, and so going with a little bit of a larger core transformer enables you to have a more unrestricted bass response on this type of design. We're using a custom-made K87 capsule that's made to our exact specifications, and it is a capsule that performs well at either the original phantom polarization voltage of the classic 87 or the higher polarization voltage of the newer circuit, and it's able to navigate between those two and give a solid performance in both situations.